Hello, everybody. My name is Terry Arndt with College Transition Publishing and Veteran Transition Publishing. I appreciate you joining our program today. It's called Career Programming for Student Veterans, the Big Disconnect on Campus. Today, we'll be talking about a variety of topics, and one of our guest speakers, or our guest speaker today, is Dustin Lane. He's a postdoctoral research fellow at the Hines VA Hospital just outside of Chicago. Dustin, let me bring you up on the screen. How are you?
I'm doing good, Terry. Thanks for the invite back to do the second webinar, this follow-up webinar. So appreciate being here.
Awesome. Appreciate having you with us again. So as we've marketed, we want to keep this short, to the point, and get some great detail and really help build this program out. I know many of the people on today's program are familiar with Dustin and his book, but I see, from the participants, we have a lot of new contacts as well, which is great. So I appreciate you joining us. For those who are not aware, Dustin and I connected late last year. I approached him when I was receiving a lot of demand from the military and veteran programs I was working with on college campuses, and they were seeking a career resource for their student veterans. And not realizing at the time, we worked together. While we were working together on this, we didn't realize the true issue at the time. But anyway, we worked together, 25 veteran, career, employers, all collaborate to create this book, the Camel to Career book. And the program today is not about this, but it's kind of a trigger for it. So I'll get to that in a moment. But I mentioned not realizing at the time when we created it. So what did I mean by that? Well, what we failed to get to was the correct answer as to why. Why why veteran centers, particularly, were needing career guides. Now, the response we were getting, particularly when we're talking to the centers, was that they're being overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed with students coming in, their veteran students, asking for career assistance. And they just didn't have the knowledge base, the information, the resources in order to answer all those questions and give them the information that they actually needed to get that career. So we ran with the information we had, and we created this resource, this book, Camel to Career, which is a guide to help student veterans with that process from being in college to starting a career. So it wasn't until I hit some recent conferences earlier this year that I'm realizing, yes, I keep getting the two topics together, but yes, veteran centers are overwhelmed. But in a lot of cases, it's interesting that they're creating that situation themselves. Here's what I mean. Okay, for the most part, what's the role of the Veteran Military Center on campus? Now, for those I've worked with that are on this program, you've heard me talk about purpose, mission, goal. Purpose, mission, goal. Right? What's the purpose? What's your mission? What's your goal? And if you stick to that, you're going to achieve great success. So when I talk to a veteran or military center, for the most part, I'd say 99% of the programs I work with, they are there to be a resource for that student population to ensure that their success in college is achieved, to provide them the tools, the information to help them achieve that academic success. All right. Rarely do I ever go to a program or work with them and they say, our mission, our purpose, our goal is to help our student veterans get a job. But there is one place on campus that has that mission, right? It's our career services programs. That's their mission. That's their purpose. That's their goal, is all related to helping the student population get a career. And it's not just certain students, it's all students. So I'll play the scenario out in a little bit that's brought this to light and put it all together. So I've been on the road for pretty much the first part of the year. And I've gone to conferences for orientation, first year experience, career conferences, as well as veteran conferences. When I give copies of this book, when I give copies of the Camel to Career to the veteran center teams, and team members, they would quickly review it and say, oh, this is great. I'll take it over to our career center when I get back to campus. I was like, all right, that's fine. But when I gave the book at those career center conferences, and those team members, I'd hand them a copy of the book, say, hey, there's a book. It's focused on student veterans and achieving career success. They'd look at it and they say, hey, great, that's awesome. We'll take it back to campus and we'll give it to our Veterans Service Center. So these two scenarios are running out where career centers are saying, hey, we're going to take this book and give it to veteran centers. Veteran center staff are saying, we're going to take this book and take it back and give it to our career centers. So they're giving it to each other, but neither are implementing it. So it tells me that there's not really a student veterans career program on their campus because they're both pointing at each other. So why is this the case? Well, I was curious, so I went out there in the market and I kind of asked some questions. I went to the veteran centers and I asked the question, do you find it's difficult or challenging to work with the career center? And interesting enough, the responses I got were they put our student veterans into a boilerplate program, right? Our student veterans are different and they're trying to put them into this program that for the traditional students, and we don't like that. The other response I got from veteran centers, they don't understand, the career centers don't understand the military terminology, culture, and how to convert that to civilian terms. We do, and so we'll take on that responsibility, right? So on the reverse, then I went to career centers and I asked their staff, do you find it's difficult to work with the veteran centers on your campus? And overwhelmingly, a lot of the question or a lot of responses I got were, one, the veteran centers are protective, they're possessive, they feel that they know what's best for their student veterans and no one else does, and they don't trust people. Now, I know I'm putting a broad thing out there, and I know there's some comments coming up on our question section about this. I'm saying, for the most part, that's what I'm seeing. And it's not every program out there, right? But there's a disconnect that's taking place, and the people who are suffering are student veterans, because the veteran centers are pointing, saying, hey, this is a great resource for career centers saying it's back to them. But in the between, here are the students in the middle, and they're not getting served. So I want to throw it back to you, Dustin. Let me bring back up the screen here. I mean, you just recently graduated, and I know you had undergrad as well as your graduate programs, but as a student veteran, what was your own personal experience on campus when you were looking for a career advice?
Yeah, so when I was in undergrad, there wasn't, recently on campus, there wasn't a veteran center. We've always had a career center. But in undergrad, as I talked a little bit on the first webinar, is by the time I start thinking about my career or for a job, it was really too late in the game. My main focus was just getting good grades. I thought if I could get good grades, I had military experience, the job would kind of just naturally be there. But I do remember I went to the Career Center, but like I said, I thought it was too late. But I remember going there and I thought, oh, there's a lot of great resources here. I should have I should have started this earlier. And I'm sure I'm not the first student that ever said that with the Career Center. But there was a lot of great resources, but they were mostly for the traditional student. I didn't notice at the time, and this was about 10 years ago, that there wasn't anything really tailored for the veteran or spoke to some of the issues that veterans have, such as translating their military skills, just talking about their military experience in a resume, and so forth. So for undergrad, I went to the Career Center, but it was really too late. And what I did notice was that there wasn't nothing really tailored specifically for the veterans to help the veterans even more, and such as some examples I just gave there. And at that point, I was like, well, I'll just, I was naive, obviously. I was like, oh, I'll just figure it out on my own, Mm-hmm. And so I would try to read books on resume writing and some of the tough interview questions. But, some of the important things that I didn't use and I could have used at the Career Center was having the mock interviews. with the people that work at the center, and that they record them and they could give you feedback on those, and that was just a lot of resources that were available, but I didn't take advantage of till it was almost too late, I felt, for my undergrad. And then when I went into grad school and into the different programs, I saw that there was a switch, not just on campus, but I think on society and college campuses, to start tailoring that. Look, there is this missing information that the veterans aren't receiving that they need when they are coming back to school. So there's been a lot that's been done in the last 10 years, but at the same time, this is a book that will speak directly not only to the veterans on how to work with a lot of those issues, such as how to translate their military skills, but it also is a great resource book just for faculty or even career centers to figure out, okay, what are some of the different dilemmas that veterans are having with the career process once they get back. And they can really use that to tailor their programs or just be a source of information for them.
Okay. Well, I know, and I agree. I mean, it's a good point that you brought up. It's like the career centers, I mean, that's the thing. They're experts in finding people a career, right? Despite their background. And they need some, in some cases, they need some help in understanding that veteran audience, but it's something they can do. So I'm curious, can you explain why it's so important? I mean, you talked about the career services that you experienced and you saw that were available, and some that you didn't take advantage of as well. And there's a vast amount of resources available there. It's the fact of just getting in and taking advantage of them. But from your perspective, as a student veteran that went through the process and now having some experience with it and writing the book, et cetera, why is it so important for that veteran audience or the Veteran Center and the Career Service Center program to collaborate?
Well, I thought you brought up a really good point at the very beginning of this webinar, Terry, was when we were talking about the disconnect between the veteran centers and the career centers, and some of the problems that are issues that they thought they were having with the other group. I mean, collaboration, I think, is so important because, one, you're bringing strengths from different tables around one table, right? Mm-hmm. And you got the veterans. You almost have to have the veterans there. They understand the culture. They're going through the problems, but they also, so they can bring that to the table, places that they need help with, and also they can talk with the Career Center. That, look, okay, these are some of the main issues that we've having. We know you got a lot of great resources, but they're not all your resources aren't tailored for the experiences that maybe veterans are going to have with the career process. Can you do that? And I think that's a big part of why they need to collaborate. Another reason is if you just look at the status of our veterans in society, you look at the transitional problems that veterans are having, the unemployment rates. And I want to refer to two studies here. One was done by Syracuse University that just came out this last year called Missing Perspectives. And they looked at, or they had a population of over 8,500 post 9/11 veterans from across the United States. And they asked, one of the key things that they were asked was, what was your transitional challenges that you've had since you've gotten out of the military? Over 55% of that population talked about finding a job was their top transitional problem. The only challenge that was above that was trying to navigate their benefit system through the VA. So 55% of them, even with an education, are having problem finding employment. And then the second study, which was called The State of the American Veteran, this was a collaboration, keyword collaboration, right, on the University of California and Loyola University in Chicago. And what they did is they looked at both veterans that were pre and post 9/11 veterans in the Chicagoland area, and then also in LA and around LA. And one of the key things that this study illuminated was that the unemployment rate was twice as high for a post 9/11 veteran than it was for a pre 9/11 veteran.
Wow. Okay.
And I find that kind of disheartening, because there is a lot of veterans that are coming back and they are getting an education. They are getting that degree. But when it comes time to transitioning now from college to a career, they're still having a lot of issues. And I mean, I was a prime example of that.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point. And I appreciate bringing up those studies because, you know, it's interesting that there's those kind of hard numbers that show that information. So, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. Now, I know one of the things we wanted to talk about too was programming, you know, communications. I know I've been working with a lot of schools and a lot of particularly veteran programs over this last year, and I often get questions, and I see some of the questions coming across here too. So be sure to keep posting those. We're going to be answering questions in a little bit. So if you have a question, just use that little box on the bottom. But so what are some programs doing out there? And there's some amazing programs, which is really cool to hear some of these things. And for example, one veteran center I'm working with is assigning work study students to go work in other programs on campus. One of them being the Career Center, another one being the VA Center or the Alumni Center. And what they do is they're part of their task, and it's a collaboration between the two programs, the Veteran Center and the Career Center. What they're doing is that work study student, the veteran, will work in the Career Center, will learn their programming, will be engaged, work with it, understand it, and part of their program, their work study criteria is that at the end of that semester, at the end of their term, their work study term, they have to go back to the veteran program and do a presentation on the Career Center. Why was it of value? What do they have to offer us as a veteran? What kind of resources are available? And they're doing this over and over with all the different departments on campus that are available for all students, not just some students, right? So these veterans are going out, doing these work studies, understanding the program, and coming back and giving it to a peer-to-peer program, a presentation about that center. Here's what the Career Center does. Here's what they have to offer. Here's their internship, co-op person, et cetera. The other thing, some of the veteran programs I'm working with, they're going out to their career centers. They're saying, we want to have someone on staff that's assigned for our student veterans that we can point that person to. And so what we want to do is create a certification program. So they go through and they understand what that student veteran population is, understand the military culture, understand the military terms, how to convert military experiences to civilian terms. And so they get a certification. Specialized career fairs, they work together. There's employers that want veterans. Veterans with a higher degree, great. So they're having specialized, or they're having programs right before their main career fair, that the night before, the day after, the afternoon of, whatever, for student veterans. And there's other events. I mean, it's really cool to see this happening right now. And so that's where I see there's great programs out there. Then there's other programs that are really struggling, and we're trying to put those two together. So I know, we discussed before today's program, the Camel to Career book. This book really should be the stimulus for your conversations with the other programs on your campus. Particularly if you're a career center, use this as a stimulus to start a conversation with your vet program. If you're the vet program and you're on this webinar and your career center is not, use this book, take it to them. In fact, I'm going to put up here on the screen a link to the book. You can get a copy from Dustin and I for free. It's a free download. Get that. If you don't get it, or if you already have it, great. Use that as a stimulus to send it over, send a link to it to the program, other program, and say, hey, here's a book. Let's get together and let's talk about how we can implement something like this or some of the programmings like this on our campus. There's going to be a copy of this webinar that we're doing right now that's going to be emailed to you afterwards. Send that to your colleagues on campus and say, hey, I just sat on this webinar. We should be doing more. Let's get together and talk about it. So I encourage you, if you use this as a stimulus, use this book as the stimulus to start that discussion and start a program, start an event, things like that. And if you need us, Dustin, I know you're more available sometimes than not, but you know, I know whenever you can, you will be. So if you're starting a conversation on your campus and you want some help in determining how to put together a program, what kind of things are working, more details on these examples I just talked about, contact us. We're happy to get on the phone, even if you decide not to buy the books for your students and you just need a few copies for your staff, faculty. Great. Just like Dustin said, it's a valuable resource for that too, or even if it just starts the conversation. That's what we want. That's part of our mission. So with that, I know there's some questions here. Dustin, I want to get to those so we can, because I know we're running a little bit short on time. So Dustin, I got a question here for you. I'll bring it back up on the screen here. This one's about student veteran engagement. Let me read it. That's pretty funny because I've heard this one before. So we have offered programs at our Career Center in the past for student veterans. Very little participation to the point we've stopped doing them. They don't show up. Suggestions, recommendations. Dustin.
Yeah, a couple of suggestions. The first one would is if you're not connecting, and maybe they have been, but connect with the leadership of the veterans organizations that they might have on campus. They might have a chartered Student Veterans of America group or just a regular registered service organization, student veteran group, is reach out to their leadership to invite them to the events, help with the recruitment, help to get the word out. A lot of the times, these organizations have their own monthly newsletters. They meet at least once or a couple times a month where they can be talking about the upcoming events that you might have. Another great point of contact is, I know at the University of Illinois, we call it a Veteran Support Services Coordinator, but a lot of campuses are having somebody like this position, which is basically a point of contact, a liaison between the veterans and the different student affairs offices or any offices or departments on campus where veterans might need assistance. So it's good to reach out to them too, because they have a strong relationship with a lot of the veterans on campus. So try to bring them into the picture if possible. Okay. And then the next thing is I would try to, so I think about our career workshop. We did a 4-series career workshop for veterans. We collaborated with our Career Center, the Veteran Center this last year that just opened up, disability services. Right. So to tailor these for them, we needed the collaboration between the different offices. The Career Center, I mean, they know what they're doing with the career in regards to career development, the theories behind it. The veterans were able to bring in the veterans lens and just what are some of the issues that they need help on that they can work with the Veteran Center to focus a workshop program on. And even with disability services. You know, we had a part on the career workshop is if you have a disability, do you have to disclose it legally or not legally? And, you know, there's a big misconception and kind of the stigma that veterans have that if they go seek any type of assistance that it's going to follow them through their career. And there really is some legality behind that. And so that was an important educational part to bring into those career services programs. So any way you can tailor whatever you're doing for that veteran group, and a lot of that's going to be having them involved to get their perspective on that. Yeah.
So yeah, good points. And I want to bring something up too, which is again marketing, that peer-to-peer component to that. So to answer on that, just like that one school I'm working with that has student veterans working as work study staff in the Career Center. I mean, that peer-to-peer relationship, they're going to be good about getting the message out to their colleagues when you want to put together a program. So I encourage you to re-engage, try your program again, work with a student veteran, get them into your mix, let them understand what's happening, as well as some of the colleagues that Dustin had brought up. And and then also look at your overall marketing. I know sometimes we get tied into it. You know, a lot of my business is about marketing, trying to get people like you onto programs like this. And people say student veterans are hard to engage. You know who's hard to engage? People in higher ed. Trying to get people to click and come to a webinar like this is tough. but there's marketing techniques that you can use. So I'm happy to share those too. So if you're interested, call up with me later. I've given some great tips to other programs on how to better market their stuff and get students involved. Dustin, another question for you here. It's about the book. It says, is your book a course or a program? If we were to create something with our Veteran Center, would the book provide us the template for doing so?
Yeah, definitely. So the book, I mean, it can be used as you just pass it out as a resource of knowledge for veterans, or if there's a specific course or a transitioning program that you're having set up at the university or at your school for veterans. I mean, this is, you can go book by book and basically create your lesson plan on some of the top issues and areas that really veterans are going to need assistance with, but also areas that explain how important networking is. You know, and the earlier you can get that information to the veterans, which might be good if they're transitioning in their junior year or if they're coming to you as a freshman. You know, the earlier you could get that information, and having a class on campus would be a prime way to do that. So definitely, it could be used for a course.
Good. And I'll add to that too is that I do have clients who are using it as part of a course, and if you go to our website, there's sample syllabi, employers, how they're using it for onboarding, how people are using it for a course. So there's some templates we can provide to supplement with our book, or otherwise, if you decide not to use the book and other things, you want some templates or some guidance on how to create a program. Again, we're here as a resource to help with that because we want you to create something, right? The first step is better than no step. So keep that in mind. Another question, this is Terry. Our Veteran Center has worked diligently with our Career Center since inception. It's a critical partnership. Good. I'm surprised other programs aren't leveraging this valuable resource on their campus. Well, good. I mean, that's a good point. And that's what we're trying to get to. And I'm glad you're on this program to help validate that. I coach as another component of my life. I coach higher ed professionals as well as businesses. And oftentimes when a business comes to me and says, you know, we're hitting this plateau, we just can't get our sales to the next level. We can't grow our business. And once I get brought into the business and I start seeing how it's working, oftentimes it's interesting. Almost 75% of the times that I'm brought in, the barrier for that growth is the leadership, because they're holding on. They don't feel that certain people on their team, or they don't want to bring other people to take on some responsibilities. You got to let go. So if you're a Veteran Center leader, you need to get that collaboration going. The only way your program is going to be hugely successful, the only way you're going to get more resources, more benefits to grow your program, and the same thing for Career Centers. You got to work together. Veteran Centers, you got to hand it off. Someone comes in and says, hey, I need some help with my resume. I need some help finding a career. Great. Here's who you should call. Let me pick up the phone, talk to Sally in Career Centers, point you over there. Head over there. Right? Done. You gave your person a great resource, and you know Sally's a person over there in the program you know has a great information, can help your students. You need to build that throughout the campus. That's the only way you're going to grow your business or your center. Another question here. Terry, as you know, career services are usually the first to get budget cuts, and the last to get increases. Buying books or developing additional programs not feasible. We're limited staff. Do veteran services have budgetary funds to help us in developing programs the two of you are describing? Well, I think budgets are a big issue within higher ed, no matter where you're at, no matter what department. But I understand career services tends to be one of the last on the pole to get some of the money. And so it's usually a campus of 10,000, 40,000, 50,000, whatever the student base might be. There might only be 3 to 5 people in that career center, if that. So yeah, I understand budgeting can be a problem as well as time. So yes, there's again another collaboration. Talk to your veteran center. There are programs, there are employers out there who want veterans that are come in that will help fund things, that will help do programs. And I have a list of those. And they're national firms that would be willing to help support financially a program. Yeah, some of them will probably want to have a step on campus too, and maybe you can leverage them to help teach some of the programming. But there's resources outside of campus that you can utilize that both programs can, veteran and career. So other OPM is what I call it, other people's money. The better way we can do that, the best. So let me know if you need some examples on that. And Dustin, I'm looking at the time. I know we try to keep this short. A lot of questions. So if you don't mind, we'll follow up directly with some of these individually after today's program. All right? Yep. Is that all right? Follow up?
It sounds good.
All right. So so final comments to wrap this thing up, Dustin. Tell us how do you leave this? How do you leave our participants today? What do you want to tell them?
All right. I want to step back just one step to the low participation question.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that didn't come to me at the time, but one way to increase participation, if you're having career fairs, campus career fairs on campus through the Career Center, is you can also, I mean, when I talk about you want to tailor it, you can ask all those industry leaders that you've invited into that career fair prior to coming down is, hey, would you guys mind spending an extra hour afterwards, an extra half a day the next day, or half a day before, where we can just invite the veterans and you can talk about your hiring process for veterans at your certain companies? Because we're seeing a lot of companies that are, like you were saying, that are wanting to target and recruit veterans into their companies. So that's just one of the steps that one of the things that I didn't mention earlier. But to wrap it up, just to touch on Terry, what you were talking about with the importance of collaboration. I mean, it's a must, and some ways to maybe try to think about how to really collaborate is with the design of your committee, a veterans committee. You know, bringing in all the different student affairs offices. But maybe even more importantly is who is chairing that committee. If you can get somebody senior within your university that will have not only depth within the university, but a widespread, 2 different departments, organizations within that university, that can help streamline a lot of the things for the veterans. And you know what? If you're looking for talking points in these veteran committee meetings, this is a great book that talks about that, all the different issues that veterans are having right now and areas of concern. So just another reason you can bring that book and the importance of that book to help with these collaborations and to start some of the table talks. So. Perfect.
Well, thank you, Dustin.
Thank you.
I have one additional thing I want to add to add myself to wrap this thing up is the word communicate. NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, they listed as one of the top talents that they're looking for all the people that, for employers are seeking. When you look at communication, it's so vital to the success of any organization, college, business, nonprofit, otherwise. We have to communicate. So when someone brings a resource to you, via our book or other, and says, here's a book for a guide or a resource or a publication or whatever it might be for student veterans on how to achieve great success in their career, say, great, I want to go to campus and help implement this. Or I want to be a part of this. I want to get it to the team members I'm working with or make that happen. Communicate, build that rapport, talk to each other, collaborate. All right? And if you need our help, we're here. That's our mission. That's why we wrote this book. It's why we do what we're doing. We want our student veterans to achieve success. And the number one reason they're going back to higher ed, the reason they're on college campus is to get a career, a great career. And we, as a group, our goal should be to help make that possible for them. All right? So I'll leave you with that. Dustin, thank you again for your time.
Yep, thank you, Terry.
And for all those, we're going to have our contact information posted here afterwards. Contact us. Let Dustin and I know if you need any help, any questions, or you just want to jump on the phone and discuss your situation. We're happy to do so. So take advantage of our contact information. And if you haven't got a copy of the book yet, wherever it is on the screen here, Click on that, get a copy, and use that as the stimulus to start your conversation. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night.